Friends, the father of tomorrow's bat mitzvah is not only an occasional running buddy, but like a number of you I see, attend services occasionally, even when it's not his child's bat mitzvah, simply because it's Shabbat. For the group of Temple 20 and 30-somethings who live downtown but can't make it out east after work by 6:15, the joke now is that where you are right now is West Nashville compared to downtown. That Connect TI group, led by Kara Greenstein, holds a monthly Friday evening Shabbat gathering known as Underground Shabbat in different apartments to wind down the week. When asked, why carve out this hour before doing whatever else she does on Friday nights, a bright, hardworking Jewish professional said, and I quote, "Punctuating my days of work with even just an hour of Shabbat provides a sacred rhythm to my week and to my life." The gift of Shabbat is that it blesses those who choose it with a greater awareness of what is most important and what really matters in life. This hour alone can help restore one's soul and offer holiness to ease the mind and heal the spirit. We can all use that. The best one-line wish for Sabbath rest I ever heard was this, quote, "May you play and take a walk, enjoy food and good friends, and take comfort easy and long. That's the blessing of Sabbath rest." Shabbat is certainly about personal renewal. And it also connects us to the greater Jewish family, to which every Jewish family belongs. A disciple of a rabbi once visited his teacher and asked him about the benefit of praying and gathering with others, especially in an age of social media. No, back then they had no social media in the 18th century. But when some, including himself even back then, were very content being alone. Why do I have to come to the synagogue? So that day, when the disciple visited his rabbi, it happened to be a very dark and cold, bitter winter day. The rabbi sat in his modest quarters, gazing at a warm, roaring fire in the furnace. "Why," this disciple asked, "must I join the local synagogue in prayer, even if it's an apartment downtown or a synagogue out east? Why must I serve with others? Why can't I live my Judaism without the constant reminder that I belong to the congregation?" The rabbi said nothing. Several minutes passed, and still the rabbi said nothing. He simply sat and stared into the flames that danced in the fire. And finally, after what seemed like hours, the rabbi leaned forward and, still without speaking a word, reached into the fire with a pair of tongs and removed just one glowing piece of coal from the heap, and he set it aside. And in a little more than a few seconds, the solitary coal ceased to glow. It burnt out, it cooled, and perished. And the student nodded and understood the rabbi's lesson. When a person, especially when you're part of such a small, precious faith family known as the Jewish people, goes it alone, eventually he or she loses the glow, the flame of the Jewish people, which an individual Jew cannot endure Jewishly without. We are part of a community even as we grow individually. And this week's Torah and Haftarah portions reference how we grow. Do you know that the Torah actually compares a human being to a tree in a field? Ki ha'adam hu eitz basadeh. A tree grows best when it has deep, and solid roots. And certainly Judaism gives us those roots. During the first 3 years of a tree's life, the Torah teaches that fruits from the tree are not to be eaten. That's the basis for why Hasidic Jews and other mystics wait 3 years before they cut a little boy's hair for the first time, based on the tree. Towards the end of this week's Torah portion, and Hannah's going to end a whole book of the Torah for us this week, the book of Leviticus, we're told that, and I just want to quote to you one verse, if Israel will keep the Torah, listen closely, then I, says God, will remember my covenant with Jacob, my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land of Israel, says God. Did you notice what the early rabbis noticed? It's the only place in the Bible where the patriarchs are in reverse order. We just said God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Why, in this week only, is the order changed? And the early rabbis answered that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were each distinguished by a particular virtue. Abraham, in case you didn't know, was famous for loving kindness and southern hospitality. Isaac for his piety and reverence for God. And Jacob for lifelong learning. And the hope was that when the time came and the Jewish people, this was just a dream, you and I are living it. It took 2,000 years. When the Jewish people would return to the land of Israel, we would return because we possess the virtue of Jacob's name, a love of learning. And should we not possess the virtue of Jacob, learning, then hopefully we'll possess the virtue of Isaac, piety and reverence for God. And if the Jewish people weren't religious, then they might at least return to Israel because of the virtue of Abraham, loving kindness. And what's most interesting when you think about the Jews who established the modern state of Israel 68 years ago is how few were distinguished by piety or reverence for God. The early Zionists were not religious. They were secular. To this day, Israelis are among the most irreverent people you'll ever meet. With a few exceptions, the early Zionists returned to Zion because of Abraham's virtue of loving kindness, because they loved the land, and they loved what the land had meant to their fathers and mothers and their faith. And the American Jews, who helped finance the resettlement of Jews, didn't act out of piety, but out of the same loving kindness and generosity characterized by Abraham. But loving kindness isn't enough. It's also our task to teach people, Jews and all people, reverence. That's Isaac. And it's also our task to ensure a priority for learning so that it may lead to action. You ever think about this? Jews are the only religion in which our houses of worship have a library in its center. And the prayer you say for study in Judaism is the same prayer you say. It's elevated to the status of what we're doing right now, prayer. Only if we're educated, not only in our professions, but in what Judaism says about the building of a better world, can we make the teachings of Judaism live today. I want to give you one closing example. I know I'm picking on her a lot tonight. Tomorrow's bat mitzvah, Hannah, is a swimmer. The Talmud teaches that when you raise a child, a parent is obligated, among other things, lahashito b'mayim. I know it sounds like an Asian restaurant, doesn't it? But it means literally, you're obligated to teach your child to swim. Okay. We learned that. But how do you make it live in Memphis in 2000? What if you extended that mitzvah to others, as Hannah is doing with her mitzvah project, teaching inner city children who would otherwise never learn how to swim, teaching swimming lessons for kids who would otherwise drown. Around Hanukkah time, my silent prayers are for the miracle of no drunk driving deaths around Hanukkah and Christmas, and someone always 1 degree of separation away from our congregation is injured or killed because of that. And what's a prayer during the summer? All the community centers where these kids, who Hannah and others are teaching, they drown because they don't know how to swim. That's the feature of Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. And that's what our kids at Dream Street are doing this week in Utica, Mississippi. Our teens who do the hardest physical work tending to the 24/7 needs of children with severe disabilities tell me that as hard as it was changing diapers of grown children and feeding them through straws, it was life-changing as a giver. That is the virtue of Jacob. We learn to serve and help others. We do it with reverence and dignity, whether it's a child in the inner city or a disabled child down in Mississippi. That's the reverence of Isaac. And we do it with the loving kindness of Abraham. The beauty of Shabbat, my friends, the beauty of Judaism, the gift of this hour of personal renewal, the gift of being part of the family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and applying it beyond these walls, whether in the pool or the classroom, the inner city or in the country, wherever we can be God's helping hands to live a life of mitzvah and be of service to others. And let us say, Amen.